Hey, how's it going, guys? I wanted to try something a little different today. This is a little uncomfortable for me. I'm not used to being this close to the camera and, full screen. Usually it's just a little window in the corner when I'm sim racing. But what I wanted to do is go over a few paranormal experiences I've had. I watch a lot of channels like Nuke's Top 5, all the different paranormal things. I just wanted to share a few that I've went through myself. I didn't typically believe in the paranormal when I was younger. It was something that I never really experienced, and it's one of those things where you kind of have to see it to believe it for many people, and that's how it was with me. And I'll take you to the first time and what really opened my eyes to the possibility that there is something else out there. So I have a buddy of mine, and I used to spend a lot of time at his house when we were younger. I've known him since we were in diapers basically, and I would go over on the weekends pretty often and stay. And a lot of times, usually I would sleep in his bedroom floor, and I can't remember exactly what started it, but me and him we just got to a point where we were kind of getting freaked out in the house a little bit because it was a larger house that they lived in. He had experienced things when he was younger, and so one of the earliest things I remember is I would sleep like his bed that would be on the opposite room. So like let's say this room for example, let's say his bed was in this corner right here where I'm at. The door would be exactly where mine is now, and you could see a towel hanging on it right there beside the my cabinet with the hot toys in it. And his dad would leave the hall light on throughout the night. We just started hearing people walking back and forth, and we assumed that it was his dad because we were at the time, I want to say like 15, 14 or 15. So we assumed that it was him kind of like keeping tabs on us because we were known to smoke a little pot back then. And he one time before he had actually called us because we were smoking out his bedroom window. And what we didn't realize, when we would blow the smoke out the window, it would go out his window, straight down, and into his dad's window below us. So we got busted pretty quickly on that. But this night, we kept hearing his dad walk back and forth, and we couldn't figure out what he was doing. And I just happened to be at the foot of his bed, so I was on that side of the room with my head away from the door. So I started looking because you could see underneath his door a little bit. And the next time that I heard his dad walk up to the door, because he was just walking up and he would just stand there. And the last time that I heard him walk up, I just turned around and I looked under the door. I was going to confirm what I was hearing was actually happening, that he was just standing there. And once I heard him walk up and stop, I turned around and looked, and under the door you couldn't see anything. I mean, you could see at least halfway down the hallway, and I didn't see anything at all. So I just assumed that he stepped into the bedroom. So we opened the door and looked over into the next room, thinking that he would be in there, maybe hiding or trying to catch us or something, and he wasn't there. We got scared enough to tell his dad, and he got pissed about it, which was kind of strange thinking back. And he actually put me in a different room, like he separated us. And man, I remember I did not sleep hardly any that night because I was just so freaked out being there. Because it was I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, but like once that started happening, there was just a weird vibe in his house when we would stay there. So I finally ended up going to sleep and went home, and that was the end of that. So maybe a year or two passes. There was a time period where I wasn't staying there much. I might come to visit every now and then, but I wasn't staying all night. And there was one instance where I think Tennessee was playing the Florida Gators, and we just made a thing of it for me to come over and hang out and watch the game. And I'll never forget, this was the first time I ever actually physically saw something. So I'm sitting on his bed. So like I said, his bed is on this side of the room, like basically where I'm sitting here over against this wall. And I'm sitting on like this side of the bed, and I'm watching a TV that's like right against this wall to my right, and he is standing over at the door. So he's standing about where that second cabinet is, and his door's open, and he's standing by the door, and he's got his clothes basket, his hamper open, and I think he's going through his clothes or getting ready to do laundry or give his dad laundry or something. We're just kind of shooting the shit, not really paying attention to each other. Like, I was just mostly watching the game, and I would look over and maybe say something to him as we were talking. There was one point I just happened to look over as he was saying something. The moment that I looked over, if you've ever seen the movie Darkness Falls, you know, it's an older one, so some of you may not remember it. It's that thing where it would, like, it was almost like it reminded you of like a caped figure. It would kind of like be, you know, that one scene where it's outside of the room that they're in, and they're looking out the doorway, but they don't see anything, but they just see it out of the corner come down, and then the camera changes and you see that it's on the wall outside of the room that they're in. Well, it reminded me of that, but what it was, when I looked over at him that last time, the only way I really know how to explain this is it looked like freaking Batman just like flew by his doorway. I know that sounds so stupid, but it was just like a black cape. This all I seen was just blackness just sweep through his doorway. And you know, my instant reaction, my instant thought is like I just imagined it. Like, you know, sometimes you'll see things out of the corner of your eyes. So my instant reaction, or I was telling myself that I just imagined that, obviously. And this is just milliseconds that I'm trying to process this. But what really got it for me was at the exact moment that I seen that, he jumped back, and I ain't ever seen somebody. He leapt back and slammed his bedroom door shut and darted over there and jumped across his bed to the other side. So it was obvious to me at that point that he had either seen, felt, or heard something that I did. And I got to talking to him about it, and what he told me was it sounded like a freight train went by his door. So he actually didn't see it. He just either felt it or heard it, and it freaked him out as much as it did me, if not more, because he had seen stuff since he was younger. I hate talking about this stuff because it's all like stuff always happens. It seems like when you're talking about it's when you always have those experiences for some reason. So that was the first time, and then so I would have been about 15 at the time, so it would have been another 2 or 3 or 4 years before the next thing would happen. And funny thing with that same friend is his grandmother lived below my grandmother. You know, that's how we met each other when we were younger. And back when I lived in that house, you know, I stayed there with my grandparents, and then my mom stayed there on and off. There was a time after my grandparents had passed away, just before we lost the house. Before this happened, I do want to mention that we used a Ouija board at his house and at mine, at his grandmother's house and at my grandmother's house. And then behind his grandmother's house, he had a trailer that he lived in when he turned 18. So it was like all three of those places pretty much. But I was at that house after my grandparents passed away, and I was asleep on the couch in the living room, and I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened. So I was asleep on the couch, and before that my mom had left, and she had told me to make sure that I did the dishes in the kitchen before she got off work at night. And she had mentioned that as she was going out leaving for work, and then I went to sleep on the couch, and I was the only one that was there after she left. And all I remember at a certain point is I wake up to her. Sorry, I keep looking over. I've got my monitor, my second monitor, and I can see myself and everything behind me. So the next thing I know, I heard her come in from work, and it kind of woke me up just enough that I realized she was walking by the couch. And then from my view on the couch, she walked into the kitchen. So if you walk through the living room, there's a doorway, and in that doorway, the kitchen, and then is to the left. and then to the right there's the other part of the kitchen, and then a bedroom and a back door. If you take a left, it's the kitchen with the sink and everything, and then to the right, if you take a right after turning left, there's a laundry room and a bathroom. And I'll try to, hopefully, I can add some pictures on here so you can see the house I'm talking about. But as she went into the kitchen, she started yelling about me not washing the dishes. And I remember having a brief interaction where I was just trying to get her off my back. I was like, I get it, Mom, I will wash the dishes. Okay, just let me get up, let me wake up, and I will wash the dishes. Sorry, my foot's on I'm on my racing simulator here. Um, so we had that brief interaction. I get up, and I think, it takes me a minute to kind of get up and get awake. And I finally go into the kitchen, and I start to wash the dishes. And at some point, you know, she wasn't in there, so it was my assumption that she was in the bathroom. And after washing them for a while, I just thought it was weird that I hadn't heard her come out of the bathroom or heard the shower or something. So I hollered at her, and I didn't get any response. I was like, okay, you know. And then I hollered at her again because it's normal, maybe she didn't hear me. I hollered louder and still got no response. So at this point, I was like, that's weird. Like, why would she be ignoring me when she just got on to me about doing the dishes? So I went over through the little small laundry room, into the bathroom door and knocked on it, and she didn't say anything. So at this point, I'm concerned because she's obviously in here and she's not responding to me. So I opened the bathroom door, which to my surprise wasn't locked for her to be in there. Which maybe that would have been normal since it was just us there that lived there, but she wasn't in there. And I came out and looked around like the kitchen and the bedroom that's off the kitchen, and I think I looked out the back door, the living room, and opened the front door, and she wasn't in any of those places. So finally, I called her and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Where'd you go?" I was like, "Did you leave again or go to the store or something?" And she's like, "Son, what are you talking about?" I was like, "You just bitched about me doing the dishes, and I was just wondering where you're at because I thought you went into the bathroom and now you're not here." And I'll never forget. She said, "Son, what are you talking about? I just got to work a couple of hours ago. I'm still at work." And man, it sent chills all over my body when she said that because I know for a fact I had that conversation with her and seen her walk by me because I always I've always had kind of bad anxiety, and gets me worked up when somebody starts yelling or carrying on. So I was, when she woke me up, my heart was racing a little bit and I was aggravated. So I'm certain I had that conversation with her, and then for her to not be there at all. So at this point, like, I'm out the house, I'm on the front porch eventually, and I think after that I go to my dad's. Like, there's no chance I'm going back into that house after that happened, and then she's not there, and that was it. And we eventually lost that house after my grandparents passed, and there have been a few. Where I'm at now, we're about 2 minutes up the street, so I pass that house all the time, and there are people in and out of that place. I mean, I can't think of one person in the past 15 years that's lived there more than a year. Upper part of the house, we used to always party in the attic. We'd have just loads of people there all the time, and the attic portion caught on fire at one point, and a couple of the people that have lived there actually talked to the friend that I mentioned in the first part of the story, and they asked him if there was ever anything that happened with that house because they had all these experiences, like these weird things that would happen. And I don't think he told them we used the Ouija board or any of that, but yeah, there was definitely something weird about that place. And then so the final story is this house, um, this exact room actually. So this was my grandfather's room. I moved in here, so I'm always on the road traveling for work. And before I started doing that, I moved in here with my mom to help take care of my grandparents because my grandfather had gotten cancer, and my grandmother had MS, so she was like borderline crippled. It was all she could do to get around. And so my grandfather just eventually just got to a point where his voice was gone. He could barely talk, and he would still try to do things, but then he was going blind. And but I'll never forget, anytime he would need something from me, he would just pound on my door. He'd just boom, 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 boom. And he was a character. He was actually my step grandfather, and it feels weird to say this now with him being gone, but he was kind of an asshole, really. He did a lot for me, and I loved him, and he was a great person as far as that goes. But his personality was very old school, and so he would just pound on my door to get my attention. It used to get me so pissed when he would do that. He eventually died. Um, he would sit in the front of the house in the living room in a little chair that's still sitting in there, and he would just fall asleep sitting there just all through the night. He would sit there. As he was dying, we finally had to convince him to go to the hospital, and while he was at the hospital, a few days, he passed away, and we had him cremated, and then the urn is actually here in one of the other rooms. But I'll never forget, this was his room, so it looks a lot different now. But I was in the basement. I moved in here to help them, and I was living in the basement in a room down there just to be able to stay here and take care of them. And I want to say it was about a week after he died. I was sitting in that chair right there, and my TV is right over there. So I was sitting in that chair watching TV with my back directly to the door there. Probably the back of the chair was like 4 feet from the door. Like the way it sits with the amount of room, you're like right up against the door pretty much. I'm sitting there watching TV or gaming or something, and just out of nowhere, just boom, 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 boom on the door. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And I opened the door because I thought, because mom was still staying here, and I thought maybe it was her for some reason, like something happened or she's flipping out over something. And I opened it, and there was nobody there. And if you go out that door and take a left, there's you take a left and then a right, and there's stairs that go up, and that's where she was staying at. And so I walked out the door, and then I heard her at the steps right above me, like, "Hey, what was that? What was that?" I was like, "I thought that was you," and it wasn't. Because like as soon as it happened, I was opening the door, and at that point, like, I had stepped out, and then maybe like 2 seconds later, I heard her open her door up there, asking me what it was, and there was nobody else living in the house, and it freaked me out, man, because it was not like a knock, it was like they, like, just like literally pounding on the damn door, just like he did. But thankfully, there hasn't really been anything else since that here in this house. My buddy still goes through a lot. He still lives in his other grandparents' house up the hill from us here, about 3 minutes up the road. And he sent me like videos of stuff weird that's happening there. Like there was an instance when he lived in the trailer behind that house. We were talking, and he had an American flag, hanging in his bedroom, and we were drinking, hanging out, and like all of a sudden, like you got the two tacks in the flag, all of a sudden one side of the flag just fell and then started like dangling. And we were both looking at each other like, damn, that was awful weird. Because it was thumbtacked into the wall. It's not like you've got the hole and you stick the thumbtack in the hole and then it's held that way. Like he had thumbtacks through the flag holding it on the wall. And then that one hung there for a second. And then after we said that, the whole flag fell. And we walked over there, and the thumbtacks are both still in the wall. So that was weird for sure. We've seen cabinet doors like slowly open. Um, but he said he would be in the shower and the lights would flicker on and off while he was in the shower, and it just got to a point where it's happened so long with him that it makes him more, it pisses him off more than anything. which I kind of get that. My dad picked me up over there once when I was like 17 or 18. Pulled down in the driveway right in front of the trailer to pick me up, and we were talking for a second because I had been hanging out and like I guess drinking probably. So we were just kind of shooting the shit before we left, and he said, I don't know what it is, but he said there's something off about this place. And so, I mean, just picking me up, he could feel that like something with the vibe there was very off or different. So yeah, I mean, I've had a few, so I can't say I'm a non-believer because I've seen enough to know that there's at least something else that we can't see. Yeah, I won't make it much longer than that. I just wanted to just kind of share a couple of the stories that I've had, and feel free to share your own in the comment section.